How many more times can you check the shelves? We were supposed to open 10 minutes ago.
I'm going through it one more time.
Whatever, I'm unlocking the door.
People come to this store for the fully stocked and perfectly alphabetized shelves. We can't open until it's perfect.
Perfect enough.
Welcome to Rewind Video. I'm Bob.
I'm Rob.
And we love movies. Good ones, bad ones, old ones, new ones, big movies, small movies. Rob, we have a colleague here at Rewind Video who's rather passionate about the popcorn machine at the store.
Well, that's true.
You know this. Now, unbeknownst to customers, he's been working for years to ensure that the next batch of popcorn he makes is popped to perfection.
And they all are.
They all are. No unpopped kernels, nothing burnt, salt distributed evenly. It's kind of amazing. He's really committed himself to this. You might call it an obsession.
It certainly is.
Yeah. Now, we have decided to acknowledge this cause, so to speak, to devote a theme to our colleagues' efforts.
Yes.
And now you and I, responsible for keeping the recommendation shelf at the store here stocked with films that deserve our customers' attention. Each time we choose a selection of movies, we adhere to a theme, and this week's theme is obsessions.
And no, we do not sell the perfume here.
No, we don't.
There's been some confusion when we announced the topic, but yeah, you can quit asking. We don't sell it.
No, you got to head to the mall for that, and yeah, whole separate type of obsession. Now, I have to ask, have you ever been obsessed with something? Because after watching movies for this week's theme, I don't know that I have.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I haven't based on these movies. I think obsession is where it gets dangerous.
Yeah.
And no, I don't feel like I've gotten to that point.
Yeah, it made me realize that we toss around the term obsession maybe a little carelessly.
Like, oh, I'm obsessed with hot dogs.
Right. But the definition actually doesn't really characterize obsession as a healthy condition. It's defined as preoccupying or filling the mind of someone continually, intrusively, and to a troubling extent.
Yeah, that's definitely what's happening in a lot of these movies.
It is. And I think that initially I thought, yeah, sure, obsession, there's probably quite a selection of movies to choose from, and I think there are, but once you really define obsession in the proper way, maybe that selection of films becomes a little bit smaller because it's a particular thing.
I think now that you said that too, I'm thinking maybe some of my films have like a light obsession to them, or like a general obsession that doesn't necessarily take over a single character. Mm-hmm. So maybe it doesn't quite fit that definition.
Yes.
But it's obsession nonetheless.
Indeed. And I think we're dealing with obsession in quite a few different ways this week. So excited to talk about these movies. In fact, I don't think we need to wait. Let's just jump right into your first pick and talk to people about what it means to be obsessed.
Okay, I'm taking us to the year 2012, which is important for this.
Yes.
The movie is The Queen of Versailles. It's going to jump right to the back of the box. A documentary that follows a billionaire couple as they begin construction on a mansion inspired by Versailles. During the next 2 years, their empire, fueled by the real estate bubble and cheap money, falters due to the economic crisis.
Does it bear mentioning that inspired by Versailles is not the palace in France, but in fact Versailles as it's been created in the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas?
I wasn't exactly, I mean, yes, but did he say that? Like, I know that he said that was part of it. But I don't think that was the only inspiration. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I missed that.
I think it is perhaps their definition of Versailles, and it's supported by a lot of what happens in this movie. But I
they definitely took some design cues from the Paris Hotel.
They did.
Which it is what it is.
Yeah. So tell us about this family because they're quite a trip.
Well, this movie's directed by Lauren Greenfield, and it's filed under Property Documentaries.
Oh.
Yeah, this family's interesting. This movie's really, in a lot of ways, able to subvert our expectations about them. Your first instinct is this is a movie that came out in 2012, and this is about people who were billionaires going into the housing crisis. And because of that, they decided to build – well, they didn't decide to build the largest house. They just happened to design the largest house in America. Yep. At 90,000 square feet, which is also built in Orlando, and they're spending almost $100 million, or they say it's worth $100 million, which is like batshit crazy to me.
Yes,
because obviously $100 million house is batshit, but like, who wants to live in Orlando?
Oh my God, I don't know.
Like, if you're living in a $100 million house, you should definitely be able to see the ocean or like Mount Everest or something from your windows.
Right.
They can see the fireworks at Disney, which I guess is a big deal. But anyway, so this is this is right before the housing crisis and the financial crisis, and these people are just spending money like it's like it's nothing, which it kind of is at this point.
Yes.
So like your instinct going into this movie is to think like, fuck these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're also billionaires based on the timeshare business. Like
Which
the dirtiest,
fuck that business.
Fuck that business, and this is like, I don't know, it seems like a dirty part of that business, or like I don't know if there's like a more legitimate part of it, but this is like we get like the budget travelers in and we trick them into buying something. So they've made their money in that way too, but they're actually like kind of likable. They're a little bit too regular to just hate them blindly.
Yeah. This movie does a good job of making, especially Jackie, a more sympathetic character. But it's so hard to divorce yourself from what they're doing and what they're involved in that I don't know. I had a hard time ever really feeling too compassionate toward them. But I see what you're saying.
But I think if you view the timeshare business as neutral,
yes,
then you can't really hold it against them that they made all their money this way.
No, I mean, it's a story of the American dream.
Yeah,
and
Jackie, she's very intelligent. She's very likable. She's also kind of an idiot in like basic life stuff because she hasn't had to deal with it. I mean, she's she tells about times she's lived through harder times than being a billionaire.
Yeah.
But even then, it seems like she never learned how to just do basic stuff like not let your dog shit on the floor.
Oh, right. I know. There's a lot of dog shit. And yeah, it's funny to me that they seem so disconnected from everyday life when she kind of came up in a rags to riches kind of way,
But they're kind of just regular people in a lot of ways, which I think this movie made me realize that's part of the problem with billionaires is that they're just dumb fucks like everybody else.
Particularly American billionaires.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that the other billionaires are much better, but American billionaires are a certain breed.
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily smarter. They don't know what to do with their money more than anybody else. Like that house is a fucking nightmare. Like,
oh my God.
Can you imagine living in that fucking house? It's like living in a country club.
No. I wouldn't want it.
You need a staff to take care of it.
What is it? 10 kitchens in that house? Something like that?
Yes.
17 bathrooms?
It's insane. I mean, 90,000 square feet.
Yeah, that's
like my high school.
That's like the size of a theme park ride at Disney. Maybe even those might be smaller.
It's insane. And like the people you need to work there, it's like at this point, it's not even a house. How can it be a home?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. So fuck these people.
Yes.
They did end up, this movie doesn't cover it, but they did end up ditching the Vegas property. They didn't go bankrupt, which is what the bank wanted them to do, but they did end up ditching it in a way that like they sold off part of it like less than whatever. They lost some money. And they sued to try to release this movie or from stopping this movie from being released, which is insane to me because it doesn't make them look that bad.
No, it doesn't. And I think that it seems that this filmmaker went into this planning to tell a story of this rich family who's going to build a home. And as documentarians do, you follow where the story takes you. And, things changed for this family in a dramatic way. But they didn't relinquish the tremendous access that they gave her.
Right.
And, it's not a very flattering look at their lives when things start to change. But it's not defamation.
No, and I think what they were trying to say was, I'm in the timeshare business. If people think I'm having money problems, that will hurt my
I see.
that'll hurt my business, because what the business is, it's based on endless growth. And they even go over this in the movie. It's like we're getting payments from people who have like said they're going to buy this thing, and we're paying our customers based on that, and yada yada. And if people think that I'm bankrupt, they're just going to stop making payments, because why would they make payments on a property that's bankrupt?
Right.
And the whole thing just collapses. And so, I guess that was his rationale behind the lawsuit. But also, it's like, well, then don't be in a fucking documentary.
Yeah, seriously.
I don't know what the contract says when you get into a documentary, but you definitely don't have to say everything that he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's even what the judge said. He's like, well, any defamation that happened in this came out of your mouth. So it's like, there's nothing going on here.
Yeah.
But when you're that rich and you lose everything, as these people kind of do at some point, like, you're still pretty well off,
You are.
And I think that's part of the problem. I think a lot of people, when they lose everything, they literally lose everything.
Yes.
And if you're like a junkie or a gambling addict or whatever, like, those people end up on the streets. If you're a billionaire who made some bad investments and bad decisions, pretty soon, like, oh, we might have to live in a smaller mansion.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
another reason to hate these people. There's that great moment when Jackie says, she's like, yeah, well, even if we have to move into a smaller house, like, even if we have to live in a 3-bedroom house, and then you see her pause and like thinking, like, she's like, oh wait, we have 7 kids. Right. She's like, well, whatever, we'll get bunk beds or whatever it takes.
Yeah.
So I think the filmmakers went into this movie thinking they were going to make a movie about somebody obsessed with building the country's biggest house, and that's not what we get here. But I think, to me, what they have is an obsession of getting more and more and getting bigger and bigger as a business, and which I think is something that they're guilty of. But I think it's also something that's really pervasive in America, and it's very easy to exploit.
Yeah.
You could definitely make the case that these people also got exploited by the banks and whatnot, because he was like, listen, like, I thought it was going to be like this forever, that they were just going to keep lending me money and I wasn't going to have to pay as much interest. And then, like, I could just build more and more and more. And pretty soon I have 28 timeshares. And I'm like, oh, fuck, like, I can't afford this because they're not going to fund this anymore. And then the banks are like, oh, well, guess what? Now we own it, which is like the same thing they did to people with houses and stuff. Yeah. But you see that, like, even billionaires are subject to that shit.
Yes. Yeah.
You even look at it recently, Elon Musk bought Twitter, right? And you're like, he was one of the richest people in the world when he did that. And he had to borrow the money. Yeah. You're like, how does this work?
Right.
I don't even know how this works anymore.
The banks don't discriminate when it comes to who they fuck over.
Yeah, it doesn't matter
happy
who
to do it.
Doesn't matter who it is. They're like, well, you don't actually own that.
Right.
Like, we own it.
Yeah.
So it's funny how it works out. But yeah, so this is an obsession that, like, is pervasive, and it's kind of what our economy runs on. It's this obsession with luxury and growth and more and more and more. And so these people are guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. And so I think it's easy to villainize these people, but also anybody who is in their position, I think, not anybody, a lot of people would be doing the exact same thing. So I think it's not quite fair to say that it's these people that are the problem. It's maybe the obsession that we have with getting more and more and more, even when we have plenty.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. What I appreciated about this documentary is that it's also telling some interesting stories about the people that are connected to this family, such as like the limo driver and the housekeeper. You get a glimpse into their lives and their relationship with the Siegel family. But I don't know. I felt fixated on this family's opinion of the poor, especially George Siegel. I mean, I think, isn't there that scene where he talks, they're having a big party and he says something to the effect of, I wonder what the poor are doing right now. And it's like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah. but I mean,
that's not the story that's being told.
Right.
Like there is something bigger here, and it's interesting to see it unfold.
Yeah, that guy had been rich for decades. And no, that's a shitty attitude. We agree that's a shitty attitude.
Right.
But, he's not, the worst billionaire in the world, I don't think, based on this movie.
No, I don't think he is. And in spite of, certain opinions about just this family and how they live. I got to say, this was a incredibly entertaining film to watch, and a ton of fun to see a story that set out to depict one thing, pivot and tell a very different story. It was quite a film.
I love his response when things start going bad too. I mean, a lot of people would have, I don't know, gone like headfirst into the debt and whatever he was doing, but he was like, no, fuck it, everything's for sale. Like, I'm taking my kids out of private school. They're just they're selling everything, and then like even though he's in a grumpy mood, and his kid comes in to be like, I love you, Dad, and he's like, well, if you love me, you turn off the lights when you're not using them. And it was like one of those moments. It's like I've had those moments with my parents.
Sure,
they're like they don't want to hear it. Just like close the fucking refrigerator door, turn off the lights, like quit being an asshole and quit like wasting electricity.
Yes.
So. He's just like everybody else.
Yes.
This is a good look at an obsession that I think we're all guilty of on some level. And I think this is a really, really entertaining movie. I think it's the first documentary I've chosen for the shelf.
I think it is.
I'm putting it on the shelf for Obsession.
And if you like, or if you're interested in this story, there's more that gets told. I think there's maybe a follow-up series or something. Yeah, there's.
I know that the director made another movie called Rich Kids, which is about families with money, and I know that this family is also in that movie as well. Yeah. So maybe that's part of it.
You can definitely keep following them.
Yeah,
there's more out there. Well, great pick. Good way to get us started. I'm going to follow this up by taking us to 1988 with a short film about love. I plucked this from the Spies, but not Spies for the Government, the other kind of spies section of the store. and let me give you the back of the box. 19-year-old Tomek whiles away his lonely life by spying on his opposite neighbor Magda through binoculars. Bit of a typo in the back of the box there. It's not binoculars that he's using. She's an artist in her mid-30s and appears to have everything, including a constant stream of men at her beck and call. But when the two finally meet, they discover that they have a lot more in common than appeared at first sight. No tagline here, but once again, a disappointing synopsis, given that it doesn't seem like the writer watched the movie.
Yeah, I would say the definition of everything is different in Poland.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you brought this up. I'm glad you mentioned the fact that this is from Poland because a short story about love comes to us by way of Polish filmmaker Krzysztof Kieślowski. He's most well known for The Double Life of Veronique. Veronique. Bad at pronouncing.
Yeah, I'll give you a pass.
Yeah. He's also responsible for the Three Colors trilogy and the Decalogue, which is comprised of 10 films, each one loosely based on one of the 10 Commandments. Now, this movie is an extended version of one of the short films from the Decalogue.
Okay, I was wondering about that. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, apparently so the Decalogue was a bit of a passion project for Kieślowski, and in order to get funding for it, he needed to commit to 2 features. And what he did was essentially turn 2 of the films from the Decalogue into a full-length feature. Okay. This was one of them. This is number 6 in the series. It deals with the theme of sanctity of love. It's a nod to the commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery, or covet thy neighbor's wife, however you want to characterize it. So this story starts out following the character of Tomek. He's learned that he can see a woman who lives across from him through the window in his bedroom. He steals a telescope and structures his life around watching this woman. But we learn pretty quickly that he's not just watching her. He's calling the gas company to knock on her door when she's with another man. He forges notices for her to pick up money orders from the post office where he works.
Do you think we're seeing the beginning of this, or do you think he's been doing it for a while?
He's been doing it for a while because
he's been watching for a year.
Yeah, he has.
Do you think like he's now taking that step where he's like poking the bear? Yeah,
I think he's been watching for a long time, and now his voyeuristic behavior has turned into an obsession, and he feels part of this woman's life, even though he is very much not. But yeah, there's other things that he does, like get a job as a milkman to deliver milk to her door. He's stealing her mail. He's doing all sorts of crazy shit. Yeah, it actually doesn't take long before the two of them actually meet and interact with one another. And while I won't go into everything that happens, the outcome of their relationship kind of leads me to why I picked this. So there's a lot happening in this movie, but a major theme of the film at least in my eyes, is how different people define love in different ways. So for Magda, the woman that Tomek is watching, love is purely sexual. There's no emotional attachment. Tomek, however, has fallen in love with this woman before he even meets her and doesn't even watch her make love when it happens in the house. Like, he puts his telescope down and lets things happen. But the story's somewhat heartbreaking. It's hard to ignore the fact that Tomek is engaged in some creepy, voyeuristic behavior. And in spite of the fact that we learn that the woman he's watching actually likes to be spied upon, this is not something that anyone should be doing.
She's also not she's not nice.
No.
Before, when he's just a guy that works at the post office, she's real shitty to him. He's just a face at the post office, and she barely looks at him.
Yeah. And I was struck by that too when I saw it, and I think that they do that in order to remind you these people have no connection to one another. Yeah. Even though he's very attached to her, she could give two fucks about him, and she just doesn't know him. Which
speaks to obsession, because otherwise, why would you still be interested when she basically treats you like that?
Yes. And I'm fascinated by his obsession. The fact that he doesn't just watch her, but injects himself into her life is really interesting to me. I wonder what it is that he's fallen in love with, because the feelings that inspire him to influence the way she lives, I don't know. You can't just develop these feelings from watching I don't know. It's a curious phenomenon that he has
Think
grown
about
so
the
attached.
life that he's living, though.
Yeah.
He's living in Poland. There's not much, he's drinking water out of the bathtub.
He lives with his godmother.
Yeah. This is not an extravagant lifestyle. And to him, she might as well be like a supermodel that happens to live across the street.
Yeah.
She's living an exotic lifestyle.
Right.
She has paintings and she has nicer clothes.
Yeah. It made me wonder. It made me feel like, okay, well, in 1988 Poland, perhaps whatever is appealing to Tomek about this experience is perhaps why scripted reality television is as popular as it is today. We like a glimpse into a life that is unfamiliar to us, and that's definitely what he's getting. So, yeah, it's interesting, but it's not just entertainment for him. He has fallen in love with this woman.
Yes.
So this movie works in much the same way as the other 9 films in the Decalogue. Each examines a theme from one of the 10 Commandments in a pretty provocative fashion. There's some parallels here to Rear Window. The idea of spying on your neighbor is not it's certainly a story that's been told before, but this might be one of my favorite takes on the theme, because Kieslowski shoots this really beautifully. It tells a small but powerful story, and it makes you care about these characters, even though I didn't find either of them relatable personally.
Right.
This averages a 4.0 on Letterboxd. It was released to some critical acclaim, but I was surprised by some of the reviews that I saw on Letterboxd. More than a few people criticized this movie for depicting women as sex objects, tolerating stalking and sexual harassment, being anti-feminist. I disagree. I think that this is a story about two troubled people. There's not a larger commentary here about male fantasies or gender politics. I think that it's clearly acknowledging that these two people exist outside of social norms.
It's not condoning this behavior in any way.
No. It just wants us to know what happens when their paths cross.
Right. Yeah.
And I appreciate it from that perspective. But I'd love to hear what our customers think. So no matter what, this is a story about obsession. So I'm throwing it up as my first pick for tonight's theme.
Excellent. Always good to go to Poland.
Right?
In the 80s.
Yes. Poland in the 80s. Maybe not so different from Poland in 2020s. I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'd like to think it's different, but I really don't know. Our Polish customers get in touch with us? Let us know.
Right.
All right. I'm going to take us to 1998. The movie I'm going to select is The Truman Show, starring Jim Carrey. This is filed under Dome Dramedies.
Oh, Dome Dramedies, yeah.
Dome Dramedies.
Biodome's there.
Directed by Peter Weir. Here's the back of the box. Truman Burbank is the star of The Truman Show, a 24-hour-a-day reality TV show that broadcasts every aspect of his life without his knowledge. His entire life has been an unending soap opera for consumption by the rest of the world, and everyone he knows, including his wife and his best friend, is really an actor paid to be part of his life. Tagline, on the air, unaware.
Good tagline.
Clever.
Yeah.
It's clever and it's not annoying.
I approve.
You mentioned earlier about reality TV, and this is obviously very much based on that phenomenon. It kind of predicted a world, because this is 1998, and this is, I don't know if peak reality TV is the right word, because who knows when that could be right now for all I know. But it was definitely hitting its stride.
It was,
becoming what it was, because when Real World started, like 91, 92?
Right.
And so by 98, it was like full throttle.
Yeah.
Reality TV was taking over. And so this kind of saw a future in which our entertainment became more and more reality-based. But I don't think it ever saw the world where the reality itself was becoming less and less real. It didn't understand what was going to happen with the reality TV, where people would become so aware of being on it that it just became more and more fake. But then I feel like the world changed around it too.
Yeah.
Reality TV archetypes became like people in the world.
Right.
And social media obviously has a lot to do with that too. And so reality TV itself is the least real thing you can see on TV now.
Oh, 100%. I think this did such a good job of anticipating where reality TV was headed, but also the form that it's taken in terms of being very scripted. I mean, they everything is planned and orchestrated here, and that is exactly what reality TV is.
Yeah. But also, even reality TVs that's not like scripted and planned out. Like it doesn't have to be anymore, because people know what their role is, and they show up on these shows and they play it. Mm-hmm. But in that sense, I feel like Truman being unaware that he's performing for an audience is the only thing that's really saved him. This is the first time I've seen this movie and really thought hard on what are the other people going through? Like we view Truman as a victim here, but he's probably better off than the people, like his wife, who's been, quote, married to him for how long? And his best friend, what are their lives like? What are they getting out of this?
Yeah, because I know that the first few times I saw this, I just thought of the other characters in this as actors. It's an acting job for them, but it's not a normal acting job. It is a commitment,
possibly till you're dead.
Right.
And some of them I think agreed to it seemingly when they were teenagers or around that age. And so how do you live with that? I guess you don't necessarily have to, but also how do you get out of it? What they're going through emotionally is people and performers. This performance is your life. But also the background actors, what are they doing? Yeah. Are they there every day? But also they might get to go home though at the end of the night.
Probably.
I think they just or there are people that commute in and out of this town.
Oh yeah.
That'd be kind of cool because your job is to go live in a house, a free house.
Yeah.
And then you go to work every day and you get to go out and go to restaurants and shit.
Yep,
I guess I don't know. What's life like for the people that work on this show?
Yeah, and I don't know. I think that when you really put a critical eye to this show and how it's constructed and what's involved, it becomes harder and harder to believe that it could ever exist in any capacity. But you raised some good points about what must life be like for the people that help perpetuate this.
Yeah. Or his mother, quote mother.
Yeah.
Who is just gonna, I guess, just retire on TV, just die on TV. What is this? But where we can also see a world where we're totally okay with this. I can see us being in a place where we allow a baby to be adopted for a television show. I don't think we're too far off from that.
No, I don't disagree.
There's a lot of reasons this wouldn't work, but that's not one of them.
Yeah. And, I do wonder if some of the questions you're asking are what this movie is trying to point us to, because, the fact that we don't really, the fact that this movie is all about Truman, or the show is all about Truman, and that's what everybody is fixated on, proves that, nobody's really paying attention to everyone else that makes this possible, and those people should be as important as the guy at the center.
It would make a good 8 to 10 episode TV show.
Oh yeah,
it'd be a real interesting show. So Christoph is clearly obsessed with the production of this show, but the obsession that I was more thinking about when it came to this movie was the public's obsession with TV shows. Oh yeah, and that's what makes this possible,
right?
Because it wouldn't happen today because we can't be obsessed with anything for longer than 48 hours, it seems like. But in the 90s, it made sense that everybody would be obsessed with the same thing. And they say in the movie, 1.7 billion people around the world watched Truman's Birth.
Right.
Which, I don't think maybe the World Cup, but besides that, would 1.7 billion people ever be interested in the same thing?
No.
I can't imagine.
No.
Certainly not a TV show, a reality TV show.
Yeah.
So that's one thing this movie really got wrong. But it's our obsession with these things that made it possible, because the production is so huge, because you would need thousands and thousands and maybe 10,000 people working on this show, and you'd have to make real big commitments to people to get them on this show. The only way it's possible is if you have 1 billion viewers.
Right.
And so it's our obsession with, quote, reality in our entertainment that makes this even possible.
Yes, and it definitely makes you wonder, or at least I can't help but to wonder, if were something like this to happen today, were a show like this to actually exist, would it be enough to just see this man living life without bombastic drama
right.
to carry us along? And I don't think it would. I don't
buy it. Yeah, that's one thing I don't buy. I don't think 24 hours a day would work for a lot of reasons. Yeah. But yeah, the thing is, it seems like they do a good job of creating that everyday drama.
Yes.
But in the movie,
overarching plot lines and things like that.
You can't make that work 24 hours a day every single day.
No.
Eventually people will get sick of it. And also give him a better job. He's an insurance salesman. There's nothing more interesting he could be doing on camera. And maybe this town could be a little cooler. Maybe the Red Hot Chili Peppers swing by every couple of weeks, or something Of course, why would people want to watch this? Is kind of beyond me. There is something interesting about this, but after 30 years, it would be overkilled to death, and people wouldn't be into it.
Yeah, you wonder if maybe the desire to stay tuned in for some people is that it becomes like comfort food. Maybe they need a respite from the drama that exists in their lives, and this man is normal, and that's a relief to a certain degree. But I don't buy that it would be entertaining perpetually.
I don't think it would be. This movie, however, it's great. It really, watching it nowadays, it's definitely stood up, even though its views of reality TV necessarily aren't spot on.
Right.
What it's saying about our culture, what it's saying about how we obsess with reality in our entertainment, as opposed to truth, or maybe even vice versa. So it definitely holds up. It's a super entertaining watch. I think it shows an interesting look at obsession, and put it on the shelf.
I'm glad you did. I was eager to return to this. It had been maybe 15 years since I'd seen it. And I was reminded of how great the supporting cast is. Mm-hmm. Ed Harris is always great. Laura Linney's great. Noah Emmerich doesn't get enough credit for his role in this, because there's just so many things that he does in terms of nodding to the camera, and he's an actor playing an actor, and it's great. His performance is top notch.
And his character, I think, is the most interesting of the non-Truman characters too.
Yes,
because that's a real relationship that he has with Truman, right?
100%. There's a lot of Easter eggs here. You know, it rewards multiple rewatches in terms of just picking up on all the little things that they've brought into this world to support the fact that, you know, like Jim Carrey's character is not living in a real world. It's great. So I'm glad you chose this. It was a fun one to go back to. I hope our customers pick it up. All right. I'm taking us to the hard, sweaty bodies buckling under pressure section of the store.
That section has a lot more movies in it than you'd think.
It does. It does. And I am plucking from the shelves 2021's The Novice. Back of the box synopsis. A college freshman joins her university's rowing team and undertakes an obsessive physical and psychological journey to make it to the top varsity boat, no matter the cost. There's no tagline here. How much familiarity did you have going into this with rowing?
As much as was in The Social Network.
Great. I had a little bit of familiarity, but this movie certainly immersed me in it. This is a movie about a woman who commits absolutely everything to her sport. Her body, her mind, her relationship with society. And it's kind of hard to watch at times. The main character of Alex is consumed by her relationship with this rowing team. So the sport is rowing. She's on the college team. Like any collegiate sport, there is significant expectations on schedule, on the body, on the psyche. And there's a lot of parallels here to Whiplash, which you brought to the shelf for, what's it, musical instruments theme? Yeah. In fact, writer-director Lauren Hadaway was a part of the sound department for Whiplash. Okay. So firsthand experience with that film. I think what's different about this is that we have a student athlete who is pushing herself beyond the limit. Her coach, very sympathetic, wants her to take it easy, isn't trying to turn her into a maniac.
There's not a J.K. Simmons character in this at all.
Yeah, no.
In fact, they're quite the opposite.
Yeah, everybody is like, you're kind of crazy.
Yeah. I think you're pushing yourself a little too hard.
Yes. Something you often see when it comes to the notion of obsession is that much of the world tends to disappear around a person when they're obsessed with something. And that definitely happens here. The main character tries to balance life. She tries to balance school, love, friendships, her personal well-being, and it just doesn't work. She succumbs.
Obsession and balance don't go well together.
No, they don't. They don't at all. This is another case where I found myself wondering while watching this, what is this character obsessed with? Because you could make an argument is that she wants to be the best at a sport, or is she just an athlete that is obsessed with competition? Is she just prone to this behavior because that's her personality? There's a scene midway through the movie where two characters are talking about, including the main character, why Americans travel to the moon, and the case that's made is, to prove that we could. There's another shot early in the movie where she looks in the mirror, and I think there's a little sign it's like the gym for the rowers, and it says something like, "You're staring at your competition" or something. And so, she's up against herself. Things get a little dark in the third act of this movie. I'm going to warn people that there are some scenes of self-harm in this. The main character of Alex is definitely not paying attention to what her body is telling her. She's breaking down physically and mentally, losing the battle with ambition. And in the process, she certainly alienates herself from her teammates, her coaches, her girlfriend, everyone. She's alone. So why did I choose this? Isabelle Fuhrman, who plays Alex, is tremendous in this part. It's such a committed performance. I think that, you can tell that she devoted her entire self to playing this character. The physicality of the performance is off the charts. She petitioned to be in this role by writing to the director and saying, look, I understand this character. I participated in like a 50-mile overnight relay race, and it speaks to me because it's to a degree something that I've participated in.
What they were doing with her, I guess, I assume with makeup too at the end.
Yes.
She looked like she was 45 years old.
She did.
She was a college freshman or something, and she looked like it at the beginning, and then by the end of the movie, she just looks like completely worn down.
Oh yeah, she looks like she hasn't slept in months.
Yeah,
So this is director Lauren Hadaway's first movie. I think it's a pretty impressive debut. The story is semi-autobiographical. She was a member of the Southern Methodist University's women's rowing team. Weaves the theme of obsession into how it's shot. I think the filmmaking is pretty frenetic, ferocious. It's immersive. It puts you in the body of the main character in a lot of interesting ways.
It doesn't seem like the movie's going to go where it goes at the end.
No.
It's pretty brutal.
It is.
In fact, it made me think a lot of Requiem for a Dream.
Yes. I had the same thought. Yeah, when you see what's happening to her. Yeah.
And then it even gets more like that as the movie progresses. But yeah, it's brutal. What she puts herself through is crazy.
Yeah, I agree. Not a lot of hand-holding when it comes to teaching you about this sport and what's involved. You're pretty much kind of dropped into this and expected to tread water. But I like that. It shows respect for the audience.
There's a lot of times I had no idea what was happening.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to the boat stuff.
Yeah, when they're talking about, the seats on the boat and, all sorts of strange things that,
Yeah, no clue.
So this had a really short stint in theaters. It made only $12,000 on its opening weekend. Then it was dropped to 6 screens in its second weekend, 6 screens in all of America. So barely a blip on the radar, but I think it's worthy of people's attention. It averages a 3.6 on Letterboxd. I liked the 4-star review by Alba, which says, you know what, I'm okay with being average.
I mean, based on this, yeah.
Yeah.
Average ain't so bad.
100%.
We're like second best.
Yeah.
As someone told her in the movie, it's like you're second best. Like you're almost there. Like you're a freshman. Chill out.
Yeah. And in a year or two, you're going to be the best.
Yes.
But you don't need to be that right now.
Yeah.
And she can't take that.
It's not for some people. Some people need to be the best. Okay, I'm going to take us way back. I'm going to take us to 1948. The movie is The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. This is filed in the Old Gold section.
Great.
Written and directed by John Huston. Here's the back of the box. Fred C. Dobbs and Bob Curtin, both down on their luck in Tampico, Mexico, 1925, meet up with a grizzled prospector named Howard and decide to join with him in search of gold in the wilds of central Mexico. Through enormous difficulties, they eventually succeed in finding gold, but bandits, the elements, and most especially greed, threaten to turn their success into disaster. Tagline: the nearer they get to their treasure, the farther they get from the law.
Not bad.
I don't know. The law is like the least of their worries. You know?
That's true.
They don't really, I mean, anyway. Had you ever seen this before?
I had not. And it made me realize that I don't watch enough Humphrey Bogart movies.
No. He's a treat.
He is.
He's a treat.
Yeah. I understand why people loved him.
Yeah, he's great. The characters in this movie are great. Mm-hmm. They're fun to spend time with. Walter, the old guy, he's like the archetype for the crazy old coot.
Oh, yeah.
He's just like, I actually had to turn on subtitles the first time I saw this because he just speaks so fast and he's kind of doing that like hill guy talk. And I didn't have any idea what he was saying, so I had to rewind it, turn on the subtitles. But I always thought Bogart was like this cool, classy, slick actor, and he definitely is, but he's really great as a skeezy dirtbag.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Totally believable.
Believe it. Yes.
He's just so good as a guy who has nothing, like wandering the streets of this town in Mexico, and like they can't even shine shoes because they're Americans, which, I mean, does this make any sense to you that the shoe shining was such a thing?
No. Every time I see shoe shiners in the airport, I'm like, still?
Are they still there?
Oh, yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you're like the business guy with the fancy shoes, but like, that seems like something from 100 years ago, and I'm not even sure why they did it back then.
Yeah, it seems like it's from a time when your shoes told the world a lot about who you were. And,
that's true.
I mean, maybe that's still a thing.
Plus, you had to give people something to do. They could be shoe shiners.
Yeah.
But this also has the great part of in this movie. The old guy is always like laying out how everything's gonna go, and then that's exactly how everything is gonna go. Mm-hmm. He's like, we're gonna keep wanting to get. We're gonna find gold. We're gonna keep wanting more. We're gonna like stop trusting each other. We may even try to kill each other. And yada yada yada. Next thing you know, he says, "I know what gold does to a man's soul."
Right.
And that's exactly what happens here. Did you notice the shitty cigarettes that everyone was rolling?
How could you not?
Was that just how people rolled cigarettes back then? Or is that just a Mexican thing? Or just like a poor person thing from the 20s?
I don't know. It defies explanation.
I'm like, I can't roll a cigarette or whatever, but that well. But these guys didn't even seem like they were trying. They're just like folding it in half and saying it's a cigarette.
Very
now.
sloppy. Yeah.
I didn't notice. And I've seen this movie a few times now, and I didn't think to even look for this until the last time. But did you notice Bogart bogarting any of those cigarettes?
Ooh, no, I did not.
I didn't even think to look. But he had to have been, right? That was his thing,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So these guys are obsessed with gold. Their obsession with finding gold is this. It's a gamble they have to take, right?
Yeah.
These guys have nothing. Like, what are they going to do? Like, continue to hang around Tampico begging for money,
right.
Hoping a job falls in their lap, and then even when it does, they get ripped off.
Yeah.
So like, they have to go on this gold mining adventure, and it's the first half to 2/3 of this movie is just like these guys are looking for gold, and it's kind of fun, you know?
Yeah. I had a good time.
They have a good time. It's like it's the crazy old guy, and then like Bogart being Bogart, and I never like really knew what they were doing like when they were looking for gold.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know what it took. I just figured you go out there with a pickaxe and like you find some gold and you wash it off and you take it back. But it's like they're out there for 10 months. It's like a year-long operation. They're just in the hills with donkeys.
Right.
So that part's kind of cool. But then the last act of this movie is just Bogart losing his fucking mind.
Yes.
Which is fantastic.
It is. And it reminds me that, I don't know, I remember learning about the gold rush in school. And it seemed to me, even then, and I think this movie casts a spotlight on it, like the allure of going out west and finding gold, it seemed easier than it was. And it was not easy.
It's this jackpot mentality that obsession really lends itself to, and people who are desperate are easy to take advantage of.
Yes,
and that's what really happens to these guys. These guys get taken advantage of by the guy who hires them to do that oil thing, I think, and then they get taken advantage of by their own obsession with like finding more and more money, which they do. But then what good does it do? It doesn't do them any good.
No, it doesn't.
And part of obsession is. Going back to paranoia, is you think everybody else is obsessed with the same thing you are, you know?
Yes.
Because Dobbs is so obsessed with gold, and he's so obsessed with protecting it, and like then he gets obsessed with stealing everybody else's gold, and so he just assumes everybody else is thinking just like him, and so then it's this endless cycle. And well, if they're thinking like this, they must be obsessed with more gold, just like I'm obsessed with more gold.
Yeah.
So yeah, he just keeps getting more and more aggravated. He goes crazier and crazier. It ends up in a bad place. His obsession leads him off the cliff.
Yeah, this, in spite of being very different movies, has a lot in common with The Novice in the sense that it shows you how obsession can very easily change your relationship with society.
Yes, or just people around you.
Yeah,
or with yourself.
Yeah.
He's nuts. He doesn't have the same relationship with himself because of this. He's just gone completely off the deep end.
Definitely not.
Beginning of the movie, he's like, if I had $5,000, I'd retire, you know? And then pretty soon they're out there on the mountain. He's like, $25,000? I'm not quitting after $25,000. I need 50, 75. Like I'm trying to be rich here. Then they're like, what would you do with the money? He's like, go out to dinner and spend it all that night. It's like, what are you talking about? Like he doesn't even have a plan. God. He doesn't even know what he's going to do with it. He's just obsessed with having it.
Yeah. It's the gambler's mentality, you know?
It is.
You succumb to this idea of more, and
But I understand why. I understand why, because when you have nothing, you almost need that gambler's mentality to keep you going.
Yes.
Because like one day I'm going to strike it rich.
And plus, there's no end to what the fortune could hold. So you believe that, $25,000 isn't the maximum that I could get out of this endeavor. Who knows how much I could.
I understand that too. It's like we're here.
Yeah.
Everything's already set up.
Why stop?
We can keep going a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So even just then, it's just like, well, why get out now? Like we're already making gold.
Yeah.
So it's an obsession with gold. It's an obsession with a jackpot, and it shows the danger of obsession that can drive you crazy, can do damage to yourself and to the people around you.
And it shows why our obsession with Humphrey Bogart was completely justified.
It certainly does.
You know?
Certainly does. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going on the shelf this week for Obsession.
Great pick, and always nice to go back to an older film and see something that's not from the new release section of the store. So, I hope our customers give this a shot.
Yeah, I admit to having a lot of catching up to do with some of these older movies.
Likewise. Well, to that point, I am going to take us back to the new release section. I'm going with 2021's Mad God. This was finished in 2021, released to most people in 2022.
Yeah, I think maybe had a festival release in 21.
Yeah, but wide audiences got their hands on it in 2022. This is from the Get High Before You Watch This shelf within the horror section. Back of the box. Follow the assassin through a forbidding world of tortured souls, decrepit bunkers, and wretched monstrosities forged from the most primordial horrors of the subconscious mind. Every set, creature, and effigy in this macabre masterpiece is handcrafted and painstakingly animated using traditional stop-motion techniques. Mad God is a labor of love, a testament to the power of creative grit, and an homage to the timeless art of stop-motion animation. Ready your eyes, ready your spirit, prepare to meet your maker. Tagline, a journey beyond your wildest nightmares.
That's an appropriate tagline.
Yeah, I agree. This is Obsession of a different sort. This was the movie that I most wanted to talk about when we landed on this theme. Mad God comes to us from Phil Tippett. He directed this, wrote it. He's the singular mind behind it. But he's not known for directing. Most people will be familiar with Phil Tippett from his visual effects work. He was the mastermind behind some of those most legendary effects in film history. He worked on the original Star Wars trilogy. He pioneered the go motion technique, which gave us scenes like the Tauntaun and AT-AT scene from Empire Strikes Back. He at Industrial Light and Magic, he worked on RoboCop, Dragon Slayer, Starship Troopers, and Jurassic Park was kind of where things came to a head for Phil Tippett, because that was, when CGI actually became something that truly was going to replace practical effects.
And it's funny because now we look back at Jurassic Park and you're like, the way they used practical effects in that was great.
Yes. And I'm thankful for the fact that, CG had, it thrived through the 90s, 2000s, 2010s. And I think we've turned a corner, and now, there's a renewed appreciation for practical effects again.
And we reached a point where things were just cartoons.
Yeah.
That's a lot of like the new Marvel stuff is just like cartoons at this point. And I think
absolutely
people just don't like it the same way.
No, they don't. And they're not impressed by it. I remember growing up and seeing movies from the 90s and being so excited by what film was going to show me special effects that I had never seen before. And the appeal has worn off. You're not going into something hoping to be impressed by special effects.
Yeah. Now when you see something that's done practically, like one of the John Wick movies or whatever, you're like, oh, how did they do that?
Yes.
Whereas you watch Ant-Man, you're like, who cares? Like,
right? Yeah.
Somebody drew it.
A computer did that. Right. So Phil started filming Mad God in 1990, just a few years before Jurassic Park was released, and he worked on this movie for 30 years. So when it comes to obsession, this project was Phil's obsession for over 3 decades. He worked on it at night, between projects. He put it down for a while, came back to it. It was kind of this thing that he did on and off constantly, but it was definitely something he never walked away from.
It's clearly a work of obsession.
Yes. And you can tell that this took a long time to make when you watch this. 90% of this movie is stop motion. There's a dash of live action footage mixed in. And while there's plenty of stop motion movies that have been released over the years, just about every one of those projects was brought to you by like an army of people who are, working on every shot and scene and definitely making the laborious task of making one of these movies a little bit more efficient. But Phil worked on this mostly alone. He has a studio of his own where a small team of animators help him. But there's not a model, a set, or a shot that doesn't have his fingerprints on it in this. And yeah, this is definitely his beautiful, deformed, nightmarish baby.
Did you notice who the lead actor was?
I did not.
I think there's a couple people in this movie, and I think only one of them you see their face. It was Alex Cox, director of Repo Man.
No shit,
Yeah.
that's Alex Cox?
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. That shows that even today Phil is surrounding himself with great people.
Anytime a human was in this movie, I got a little bit taken out of it. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yes, I did too. In fact, it was jarring for me when I saw it for the first time.
It just didn't seem right.
It didn't seem right. And I was going to get to this, but this is a good opportunity to talk about it. This film definitely lacks a strong narrative thread. It's pretty open to interpretation. I think
that's very kind.
Yeah, it's definitely has like a fever dream quality to it, and I think that's because it took 30 years to make, and it feels to me that when they got to nearing completion, it was like, well, we need to inject some stuff that connects a lot of what we've shot over 30 years.
I'm not sure that it does. I don't know. It definitely doesn't have a story. It's just like visually just overwhelming. The amount of visual ideas coming at you are just nonstop.
Oh yeah. I think that, in my opinion, this movie is an exercise in world building, both figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
Large swaths of Mad God are just, scenes that establish this very fucked up, nightmarish fantasy world. And I don't know, there's some shit in this movie that's so gross and
it's very gross.
Deranged that it pretty much defies description.
I'm not sure that this movie for me rises above the level of like demo reel.
Oh.
Like I don't know. This might be something that you go back to watch a scene here or look at this, but like to me it didn't quite come together as like a movie. There's definitely no story. I didn't get a lot of ideas outside of the visual realm.
I do think that this is somebody who has a vision in his mind and wants to make it real and bring it to life in a certain capacity. And it's more about showcasing not only what Phil Tippett was imagining, but also the craft of bringing it to life in this very particular way, which to that point, I guess it functions kind of as a demo, as a way of showcasing what's so magical about stop motion animation.
It's definitely a vision of what's in his head, it seems like.
Yeah.
It's very striking.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure it comes completely together as a movie for me.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the first time I saw this, I went on Wikipedia and because I wanted to know more about just how this was made and everything that went into it. And you read the synopsis of the film on Wikipedia and I was like, did I watch a different movie? What? But yeah, I don't think that it's about necessarily trying to tell you a compelling story as much as show you a compelling world.
Yeah,
and for that,
it does that.
Yeah, I appreciate it for that in that respect. We talked about Mandy a few weeks ago and how that film has a real heavy metal vibe to it. I think that Mad God is metal as fuck.
It is.
There are several interviews with Phil Tippett that you can find on YouTube. And the features that delve into how this was made. I'd recommend that if our viewers or our customers like this, they check those out because it's really fascinating to learn how this was made. It averages a 3.8 on Letterboxd. I'll return to one of my favorite reviewers for a take on Mad God, Patrick Willems. He gave this 4 stars, and his review is just 2 words. I'm going to try to give it the inflection that I think he probably had when he wrote these, which is, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So with that, I'm bringing Mad God to the shelf. I think it's obsession in the sense of making a movie, not so much a story within a movie about obsession.
Yeah, it is a work of obsession.
Yes.
No question.
Once again, Rob and I thank you for stopping by Rewind Video. This week, the staff recommendation shelf is obsessed with stories of obsessive behavior. The movies that we chose are Queen of Versailles, A Short Story About Love, Truman Show, The Novice, Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and Mad God.
Go to rewindvideopod.com to get on our mailing list or to get in touch with us here at the store. We love answering questions.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead and ask us questions. And if you like the show, be kind, recommend.
That does it for this week's episode. Next time, tune in as we tackle the long-awaited theme of dancing.
Oh, been working on my moves.
Yes. We'll have 6 films to recommend, but of course, we're also interested in what you think. So don't hesitate to hit us up on social. In the meantime, feel free to stop by the counter for a movie to watch, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for stopping by. Hail Satan.